Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, good evening, everyone. Happy Sunday, happy Easter, if that's your jam. Welcome to Knights of Last Call on a super secret special Sunday stream. Not entirely super secret because I did announce on Thursday that I would be doing this, and just due to the holiday weekend. I actually wasn't really thinking because normally for like the last couple of years, I've gotten the Friday before Easter, Good Friday, off for my job, and I kind of forgot that we got bought by a new company and we didn't have off. So a lot of times when I have like a weekend off or an extended weekend off, I like to just throw an extra live stream in there because I'm more relaxed, I'm more hanging out. But I had to work on Friday, so. Anyways, but I didn't want to go back on what I said. So here I am tonight, and we're going to be talking tonight about Wanderhome, which is a game I know very little about. A lot of times with these first looks, I may have never read the book, but I own it, or you hear it around the interwebs, and that is not the case here. All I know about Wanderhome is that it was recommended to me by Ben Asaro from our Patreon Discord, who, if you're a fan of this show, you know that he's been on the channel a number of times. And ever since we, did the Ryutama stream, which I was fairly critical of, I've been wanting to get something more slice of lifey back onto the stream, just so that, one of the things I try to aim for here is balance. I try to make sure that we don't just present a one-sided view of the TTRPG hobby. I, of course, have my preferences. I, of course, have my biases. We cannot deny that. Part of the reason you're here is either because you agree with some of those biases or maybe you consistently disagree. Either way, it gives you a precise estimation of how you should feel. But, I try to maintain a certain degree of objectivity when I take a look at these games. But by and large, we haven't covered a whole lot of games like this. And so today we're going to be talking about Wanderhome. And we'll see how we like. And I guess the number one thing that intrigues me about it is, and this is according to the game's marketing material itself, it says there's no dice, there's no GM, there's no, complicated rules, but the game is 273 pages long. The book is 273 pages long. So I'm thinking, so what the hell is in this thing? That alone has me intrigued. And so we will journey together. Just some quick shout-outs. Shout out to Viking, who can catch a live stream for once. Welcome, Viking. Pumpkin is here. What is up, y'all? Pumpkin, you're usually not here on Sundays. There you go. You didn't know you were off of work today. We've got Cal is here. Rui is here. Catch you in the VOD, Rui. Catch you in the VOD. We'll have to throw in a European friendly stream here sometime in the next couple of weeks. See if we can make that happen. What is up, Callie? What is up, Anthony? Wojo says can't listen to double speed. It sounds so wrong. I watch YouTube at like ×3 speed. I have a plugin that lets me watch it at faster than that. Just so I can get through. It's too slow otherwise. Sometimes I'll slow it down to like 2 or 1.5, but most of the time I'm watching between 2.5 and 3, depending on whose video it is. Cole, very excited for the stream. I have Wanderhome and love it in concept, but I have no idea how to run it. Oh no, this is very interesting. Ken is here. Hello, Ken. Hello, Ben. Ben is here. The aforementioned Ben who inspired this. Luckily, I was able to pick it up on sale thanks to Ben's recommendation. I just bought the PDF and the hard copy because why not? And but if you're interested in picking up a copy of this, there is a link description below down to Drive Through RPG. It is our affiliate link. Doesn't cost you any extra money, but it does put a couple of pennies into our Drive-Thru RPG account, which is how I'm able to buy all these PDFs for these streams. And yeah, that's basically where all that money goes. Alias here. Hello, hello. Beowulf. Hello, Hale. Zerverus. Hello. Pillsbury. You have to let go of your preconceptions. All right. What's in the book? What's in the book? Oh, yes. 3X. I played in a Wanderhome campaign once. It was very unusual as it had a GM, dice rolling, and even combat. Are you sure it wasn't just root? Exactly, Viking. Exactly. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I imagine we'll have a fairly small and intimate stream. By the way, as just a reminder, as we go into April, we are probably only we probably have one official stream left in the studio, and then we'll probably have some Patreon exclusive ones as we sort of just tear it down and shoot the shit with our patrons, who, you know, honestly, it's their studio, even more so than it is mine. But we do have a super chat goal and a tip goal. Super chat goal is almost there. And we're going to leave that up until the studio's over to see if there's anybody who wants to see that. You know, if you make a tip and you don't want to see that, let me know. I'll make sure I don't increment the goal. That has happened before, by the way, where people will tip and say, I want a tip, but I don't like this goal. All right. Yeah, you know, real estate is crazy in general. Commercial real estate is especially crazy. And what's really a shame is when I got the studio, I got a 3-year lease 3 years ago. And I thought that was a crazy long time. I mean, I didn't know that the channel was even, it's a YouTube channel. I mean, I had no idea that the YouTube channel was going to even be around for another year, let alone 3 years. But, you know, I believed in the heart of the cards. And so I agreed to a 3-year commercial lease at this place. And in that time, the building, I think, has changed hands twice. And I imagine that each new owner has paid even more money than the owner beforehand. And so now this new owner, in my personal opinion, completely unbiased, is just trying to squeeze the ever-living shit out of the tenants whose leases are coming up. Because I know there's a number of people in my building, including some people on the first floor who have more of a traditional storefront, you know, with a door to the outside and, you know, glass windows, that they got in like 10-year leases when this is like post-COVID, when the rates were super, super, super low. Again, we signed our lease in 2001. So we got a good deal. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's still expensive for what it is. It's a big room and it's more expensive than my home's mortgage. So let's not beat around the bush here. But yeah, it will probably sit empty for years. I agree. Boothby and KC. Hello, hello, hello. All right. Let's head over. All right. Well, okay. This is not Wanderhome. This is Dungeons and Dragons Miniatures. What a great game. Here we go. Wanderhome. So right off the bat, we have here this very sort of, you know, almost impressionistic painting or perhaps colored pencil drawing with some of our cute little animal friends, some anthropomorphic animal friends on their way to make a journey. So, you know, just to be clear, this is not your ordinary game that we might talk about here. So let's just, you know, again, if you remember with Ryotama, I started off being like, this is stupid and I don't care about it. And then I actually got on board with it. And then they ruined it for me with the Ryujin. So let's see if Wanderhome can do better. Now, this looks like a full scan PDF of the book, which is a soft cover. I don't know if they have a hard cover, but it seemed like a nice enough book. It's a very strange format. You might be able to tell by the PDF. It's not. It's more of a square shape. I don't know where to put it. I threw it somewhere on my bookshelf. Okay, Wanderhome by Possum Creek Games, who I do not know. This came out a couple of years ago, right about the time I was signing up my lease. And here we go, table of contents. And this is everything. This is the whole game. So let's take a look at this together. Table of contents certainly is a great way for us to take a look at this. So we've got an introduction. We talk about the journey. We talk about giving the world a voice, a quick start. So only like 35 pages to talk about, basically the introduction to the game. Okay, I'm a little surprised to see this. The game has playbooks. Now that immediately makes me think Powered by the Apocalypse. Now again, I know nothing about this game except for the blurb that they have on their marketing copy, which said, no dice, no GMs. So playbooks makes me a little like, okay, kind of interested. And it looks like we've got a bunch of playbooks. This is a pretty large amount. They take up 4 pages each. Then we have 30 pages or so, 20 pages so of traits. And we have another 40 pages of natures. Then we end with season, months, and holidays, and then some dedications. Interesting. Okay, let me first, I'm actually going to start off by hopping over here into the dedications and the acknowledgments, just because I think that's usually a good way to sort of understand the game. Okay, here we go. Wanderhome was written, on the ancestral land of the SOP's Munsee people, aka it was written in the Pacific Northwest. Anytime you see that, it was almost certainly written in the Pacific Northwest. Wanderhome is inspired by the No Dice, No Masters engine, sometimes called Belonging Outside Belonging. I've heard of that before. Designed, by Avery Alder and Benjamin Rosenbaum. Now, Avery Alder, of course, is the designer of 2 of my favorite RPGs of all time, one of which is, of course, Monster Hearts, but the other one is A Quiet Year. And, of course, Monster Hearts was really the game, not even really Apocalypse World and not even really Dungeon World, but although I ended up playing a lot, Monster Hearts was the game that really sort of showed me what PBTA games could be like. So, okay. I do not know. I've heard of this engine only because of my familiarity with Avery Alder, but I cannot say that I know it. So that's interesting. And also draws inspiration from Under Hollow Hills by McGuay and Vincent Baker, of course, of Apocalypse World frame. So there's seemingly here, these are some pretty strong Powered by the Apocalypse influences, and yet no GM, no game, no dice. Venture, Grand Guganol, Wanderhome's Journey Tolls were inspired by the script change safety mechanic from Sheldon. Finally, Wanderhome is also rooted in the author's appreciation for the works of Tove Jansson, Brian Jacques, who of course wrote Redwall, and Hayao Miyazaki. Okay, so interesting. So it sounds like this should be some sort of, PBTA game, but it does not appear to be so. All right. Well, let's get into it here. It was Kickstarted 2020. Art guide. Okay, cool. And here we are. Let's get into it. The journey. Oh, we start off with some leshies. Some mushroom plant people making their way. Now, again, let me be clear. Let's just start here. You might say Derek hates this. No. I don't hate cute mushrooms going on a little journey, necessarily. What I don't like is when they're cute mushrooms, but they also, have a bloodthirster's axe, and you're just being so ironic, and you're, playing in a normal fantasy campaign where you're just going around killing people. It just feels very crazy to me. But again, it's got this kind of watercolory colored pencil sketched vibe, which is pretty cool. So we have an introduction here. Probably a little bit narrative, a little bit poetic. The road has a song all to its own. Press your ear against my chest and you'll hear it. It is always with me, soaring across mountaintops and sleeping in the gutter where the small and forgotten gods live. It tangles through my hair and sits heavy in my boots. Some days that song roars through my bones, louder than any storm, and other days it hums its tune so quietly that I could forget it's even there. But I will always hold tight to it, and I'll throw on my cloak, grab my walking stick, and set foot once more. Maybe that's supposed to be set forth, or maybe it is supposed to be set foot. All right, we'll be setting forth into a world of grassy fields, mossy shrines, herds of bumblebees, rabbits in dresses, geckos with suspenders, starry night skies, and the most beautiful sunsets. We will befriend beetles, argue with the king of the mountain, fall in love in the basket of a hot air balloon. The journeys will continue across months, season, and years, and while we wander, we will watch the leaves fall from the trees and grow again. Where will we go? What will we see? We'll have to find out together. Will you join me? All right. So very clearly off the bat, we're in for something new here. All right, we're not going to go through all of this here, but this is the land of Heth. There are legends about this place, the lightning dancers, the slobbering god. All that we need to know here is that Heth is a beautiful and boundless land full of life and soul. It is made of small communities separated by vast stretches of wilderness, and these communities are connected by dirt paths and waterways. Gods and spirits can be found everywhere, from the small forgotten gods hidden behind rocks and waves to the fish-headed crossroads demons and even the great sky gods themselves. It is a land of animal folk. You cannot assume anything about them. Both meat eaters and herbivores are likely considerate and kind, and even the smallest mouse can have a lion's heart. It is full of buggy livestock, pets, and wild creatures. Okay, so animal people, bug animals is what I'm reading here. It is a culture of hospitality. The people you will meet are fundamentally good. And it was recently caught in war, but it is no longer. There is no violence here anymore. So this is right, and this is taking shots at anybody who has any sort of preconceptions here about what this game may be. All right. Stories are for kings and dragon slayers and for the blood-soaked hangry blades. It is easy, I have found, to seek to imprison the world inside our stories, to glorify the lives of powerful men. But I am not here for a story. I am here for a journey. As we follow this book along its winding path, we will create characters. We will create characters. We will imagine new worlds and take note of the passing of seasons. So remember, we always talk about, what is this game setting out to do? What's this game's inherent promise? And, so far it is, it's not being super direct of it, but this here, this to me is the game's promise in a nutshell. We're going to create characters, we're going to imagine new worlds, and we're going to take note of passing of seasons. This book is ours, born from conversations and our dreams. As we journey, I will ask you all an abundance of questions, and you will ask each other questions as well. These will serve as our foundation, so it sounds sort of collaborative narrative building. As we travel together, future choices will contradict earlier ones. Narrative threads will crop up and be abandoned. Can anybody say the Dorn plot line? And we'll often get brief snippets into matters far larger than any of us, but we shouldn't let that stop us from committing hard to earlier decisions. And we can even find comfort in knowing we'll never know precisely what happened. On our journey, we must trust, in the end, that all the paths we've chosen were the right ones. Remember, no matter what we do, the road will carry us home. Okay, this is apparent. This is not in character. This is like a meta character. Okay. All right, we're going to be talking a lot as we journey. Our journey can only take place through conversation. This conversation may be about the paths that we want to take or the things that we want to do. Sometimes we describe our characters. Sometimes we describe their actions, or sometimes we describe the world. It is good and healthy to treat this conversation itself as a journey. So fundamentally, right, draw maps, leave blanks, play to find out. Whenever someone, I've described a few basic tools as to how we might do so below. Please remember that all these tools are not conversation enders, but are instead important ways to continue the conversation in a healthful manner. Whenever someone uses one, it's vital to accept that with compassion and grace. All right. So, tool number 1, let's do this instead. Sometimes on a journey, you'll reach an impasse where continuing down a particular path will put you in danger or discomfort. You are always empowered to speak up and say, let's do this instead, and provide an alternate path through the situation. If someone else doesn't want that, we can work together to figure out what we'll do next. For example, let's not talk about this right now. Let's change the topic. So there's a little bit here of the sort of, safety tools. Let's not have my character lose this thing I care about. Instead, I'm going to let go of something I don't mind losing. Right? So this is all about permissions and making sure, this is a very, very, heavily, obviously, Indian informed game. And so the concept of the safety tools here are like not just thrown on, but are literally baked into the tool set of the game. Do we want to? It's polite to ask this before traveling into uncharted territories. It means that you're going somewhere new and potentially hazardous, and you want to get everyone's buy-in first. Where do we go next? When we journey together, we may get lost or stuck. It's a good idea to keep checking in with your other players and ask, where do we go next? What are you thinking? A lot of these are great tools just in general. I always say this, like, not just GMs, but players should, talk up and engage with the other players and say, hold on a second, I want to know, like, what does your character think about this? I'm interested. I want to hear from you. And that it's not just the GM that has to do that. Hold on. Sometimes we need breaks. This is also very like Iron Forge-y, right? Where you could one of the moves in Iron Forge is like take a break or something like that. No. No one can ever make you do something you don't want to do. So again, a lot of this is just safety tools. And then there are other tools like X cards, script changes, lines and veils, safety checklist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. All right. We're going to need this book. We're going to need paper and digital copies of the materials that we need. We'll need some tokens. Tokens can be stones, chips, seeds, or anything small and plentiful. After we've gone through the introduction and familiarize ourselves with the Heth, we'll want to take a moment and talk about the kind of journey we hope to embark on. Here is a few questions to start the conversation and make sure everyone's on the same page. And remember, you can always go back to these. How long are we expecting this journey to last, if we have any expectations at all? Do we want a more pastoral and upbeat journey or world that lingers more heavily on trauma and recovery? Do we want a more personal journey focused on mundane issues, or do we want a more magical and mysterious journey? Do we want a single person to act as a guide? Do we want to rotate between guides, or do we want no guide at all? All right, Playbook. Each of us will be playing travelers, journeying across the Heathland. Your characters may be from wildly different places and have wildly different destinations. Pastoral. Pastoral means, out in the countryside, away from civilization, rolling hills, beautiful meadows, pastoral. All right. So once Playbook to make a character, the first thing we'll need to do is choose a playbook. The playbook represents the specific kind of person you might find across the Heth. And this is sort of more of like just like a, example of play here in this italicized. Your playbook serves as your main representation in the world and your main tool. Wanderhome contains 15 playbooks, which begin on page 45. And this is an example of the character sheet that we'll fill out with the playbook information. The fact that there is just one sheet for the playbook tells me that this must be a little bit different than what we would traditionally see from a Powered by the Apocalypse game, which this does not appear to be. Your playbook will tell you to make some choices about your character. As you make these choices, tell your fellow travelers about the decisions you're making. Don't be afraid to commit to concepts early and hard, to ask other travelers if they think certain choice is a good idea, or to follow your most self-indulgent heart. Many of the choices will involve inversions, such as choose two and choose two that you're not. These choices are a space to contemplate and interpret. And while you may occasionally notice options that use gendered language, use these are chances to either embrace, reject, or ignore the presence of gender. Journeys as liminal and complicated environments are spaces for queer self-reflection. Being inspired by Avery Alder, this comes as no surprise. It's a big part of their design space and what they want to explore. Once everyone feels settled with the choices they made, go around the circle and ask your choices of questions to the persons on your left and right. And of course, you can always ask more questions if you wish to flesh out how everyone feels and to make sure your characters connect together. And then finally, take a moment to look over the things your character can always do. As you travel, you will be reaching into this toolbox a lot to hit beats and communicate how your character exists in relationship or with the world around them. These are not necessarily ways to solve problems or take defensive actions. And we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at the playbooks here in a minute. But so now we get to something, the first thing that we've seen here, which is more mechanical. And by the way, nothing that they're saying here in these playbooks feels very different from a lot of Apocalypse World playbooks. When you're a lot of Apocalypse World or Powered by the Apocalypse playbooks, you're choosing a look, choosing a type of clothing, choosing a personality from a list. And then oftentimes, especially like in Apocalypse World, Dungeon World, you're asking questions to the players that are sitting to the left and right of you to sort of form those initial bonds. That's one of the things that I like to do with the backstory cards, which I'm always hyping up. And those work in kind of a similar fashion. But here we get into the first mechanical thing here, which is tokens. There is a rhythm to the way we move through this world. Sometimes we give others all we have to offer, and through that, we can find strength. Okay. So maybe like a fate point? We'll see. Here, this rhythm is represented through tokens. Whenever one of us makes a personal sacrifice or sticks our neck out outside of our comfort zone or pays close attention to the world around us, we will get a token. It might be easier or more natural for some of us to do these things than it is for others, but that's no matter. We'll all get tokens regardless. After gaining tokens, we can then turn around and spend those tokens to shape the world. These actions always push on or solve something important, which might not easily resolve on its own. We'll sometimes catch ourselves inadvertently doing these things anyways, but there's an important difference between following a course of action that hopefully will help someone out and spending a token to declare, I'm taking a stance here. There's strength in that sort of fundamental truths. So there's sort of an idea here of kind of, there's sort of an idea here of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of fabula ultima points, a little bit of fate points, right? If you, or even like kind of a burning wheel style thing where if you're willing to do things that are bad, or against your character's nature or represent a difficult choice, then the game is rewarding you with these tokens. And ideally, or in theory, you should be able to use those tokens in order to inflict a more powerful narrative change on the game. So it's a pretty highly narrative game so far. All right, so you get a token whenever you help inconvenience yourself to help someone else. Give away something that you hold dear. Pause for a moment and take some rest. Leave an offering to a small or forgotten god. Speak your true feelings on a subject. Take a moment to bask in the grandeur of the world and describe that to the table. Take a moment to watch a tiny moment of beauty and describe it to the table. And take a moment to marvel at something no one has ever seen before and ask the table to describe it. So these are the first mechanics that we've really seen in this game. Assuming that there's no dice, so it's an interplay and exchange of these tokens. In other words, it's pretty much strictly a kind of a, I guess it's kind of a dramatic resolution methodology, similar to like Amber and other diceless games. But this is telling you, like, if you want to, play the game and be a sweet car hopper, then these are the things that you need to do. Not choose the right feat, not build a good attack roll, but you need to be willing to do these things. Now, what can we spend a token to do? We can provide a solution for an aspect of a material or immediate problem. We can ease someone's pain. We can keep someone safe from the difficulties of the world. We can offer someone the chance to connect with you on a personal level. We can find what someone needs to give them a chance to change fundamentally. Reveal something hidden about the person in front of you and ask them what it is. Know something important about the place you're in and tell the table about it. And listen to the shared wisdom of the many small and forgotten gods and ask the table what they tell you. Failure. Here we go. You might notice that nothing Wanderhome tells you to do concerns itself with failure. This doesn't mean you can't fail. Indeed, you can choose to fail whenever you'd like. Instead, Wanderhome as a game isn't preoccupied with failure. Often in life, we don't fail. Sometimes we struggle to do something, we get passed over, or do something we wish we hadn't, or give up. But even those moments aren't truly failures in a pejorative sense. Mistakes, maybe, suffering at the cruelty of others, listening to your body and your brain and accepting their limitations. But it doesn't mean you're a disaster, and it doesn't mean you have failed. All right. And again, this is the stuff in italics here is sort of examples of play. I want to start by describing the view we see as we crest the mountain, looking down at the Thistlesong Valley. Socks announced. That's pretty funny because that was the name of Aaron's. That was the name of Aaron's character from Root was Socks. They continued to tell us all about the new place in which we found ourselves and took a token for describing a tiny moment of beauty. Mel drew a picture of the Thistlesong Valley, and is that a pronoun? I don't know that word. An insert picture. We spotted a house with curling smoke rising from the chimney. Z also took a token for describing a tiny moment of beauty. Charlie suggested that we stay here for the night, and we agreed. As our party approached the old house, I described a thatch roof crumbling from despair. When Socks asked why it was in despair, I told them that this house belonged to an old dormouse with an aching back. The roof was damaged by a recent storm, and she'd been unable to fix it. So, again, this is predominantly sort of a narrative conversation, right? That we're exchanging. There's very little game here, and there is that to my knowledge, and there's very little simulation here. Instead, it is a way of formulating storytelling, which is kind of funny because that's what a lot of people end up doing with D&D anyways. Now don't get me wrong, I like collaborative storytelling as much as the next person. Okay, I just like dice because the dice make things right dramatic and interesting for me, and they make us, change what we have to go and where we have to go. Now, we've been getting into a lot of conversations in the Discord about whether or not people can surprise themselves. And I said, I'm not really capable of surprising myself. That's not to say that sometimes I don't think of something after I'm trying to come up with a solution and then finally come to an answer. But I don't find myself surprising myself. It's very difficult for me to sort of think, of myself outside of myself. Other people can do this. So it's possible that for people like this who can really kind of separate the id from the ego and sort of be able to create at the same time that they are consuming content, this might be a very natural thing. But I do think I might have a harder time with this than maybe some people would. All right, so the kith, that must be what we call our ancestries or our race. Your characters aren't the only people in Heth. You're going to encounter a lot of folk, from powerful monarchs to nervous kids to gentle innkeepers. As you're making your characters, you're probably even making a choice about the type of kith and kin you already know. Whenever you bring someone up, write down some information about them. You don't have to write down much, but if you ever encounter them on your journey, you should take a moment and figure out a bit more. All the kith and kin you encounter, from the mightiest gods to the smallest vole, have traits. Traits are character descriptions, but they're also ways for whoever is currently playing as that kith to make choices and breathe lights into them. As we make choices about our characters, it'll often suggest traits for the kith in our lives to have, written in italics. So we'll get a card. What are their names, pronouns? What is their form of animal? What is their relationship to another character? A detail about that character. At least 2 traits. And we can always write down more or less than this, but those 5 bullet points should get us pretty far. Okay. Some traits have the small little, I don't know what that symbol is, but little flower symbol next to them. This means they're explicitly magical or supernatural. If we want our journey to be more mundane and grounded, we can ignore these traits. Other traits have a, double T by them. This means they're born from trauma and respect a darker side to the world. We can ignore these traits or be mindful of them if we want to keep our game more upbeat and lighthearted. So, what page are we on here? 23. we got this. Okay. Our first place. We always begin our journey by arriving in a new place. In order to create such a place, pick out 3 of the following natures or choose randomly. Each of these natures will serve as one of the building blocks of that place. Natures are the elements that literally or metaphorically represent various aspects of the place. After you've selected 3 natures, consult them on page 131 and make choices for them. Make a conversation out of it. Toss around ideas, mixing things together. These natures determine the look and feeling of a place, and you are welcome to interpret these as literally or as metaphorically as you would like. For example, while your place might literally be a hillock, it also might metaphorically be a tower. Once we've got a pretty good idea of what this place is, we'll go around and have everyone say one common type of animal folk that live in this area. This doesn't mean everyone in this place is, for example, a salamander. It just means we have an idea of what they have. Then the person who's spoken the least during this entire process describes what forms the many small and forgotten gods of this place take. So again, there's definitely a vibe here of like the kami no mishi from sort of Japanese culture, which is also present in Legend of the Five Rings, which is how I know about it, which is this idea of the little, I think kami no mishi means literally like little gods. And it's this idea that like every rock, every tree, every creature has a sort of spirit, a god spirit inside of it. Last but not least, we give this place a name. And now we embark. Once we have our place, some kith, and each other, we are ready to play. All we have to do is answer some questions together. Every time we gather, we will answer these questions before we start playing. What sort of place did we just travel from? Do we feel our journey has been long? Is there somewhere we hope to go? We will then spend a quiet moment and each answer this question silently in our heads. Where is my home? And with that, our journey begins. All right. So this is obviously a very different game than a lot of the things that we talk about. And by the way, for all the people out there, like when I'm talking about Avatar or I'm talking about, Powered by the Apocalypse games in general, and you're like, oh, that game is so narrative to me, I just need to play my D20. Remember that there are games like this that exist. So do we roll randomly on this? Do we roll on each one, or are these the different natures? Well, we'll see. It's on page 131. All right. So I think this is more about how you play. But, our jobs as a player is to give our characters voices and to make sure that we're expressing ourselves, I guess you could say role-playing our character well. Voicing kith. Okay, so kith must be like non-player character, NPCs. Anyone could pick up a kith and give them a voice. So, because, right, there's kind of no GM, right? So anybody could pick up an NPC and play them. It's like, again, if you've played Microscope or Fiasco, this isn't the craziest concept or different idea. In Fiasco, you have your quote unquote character, but in many scenes, especially if you're not present in that scene, you might be, the cash register, the cashier who's being robbed by the other characters, just so that you have something to do in that scene, and they need somebody to fill in that spot in the film. So you could play your PC. You could play an NPC. You can give a voice to a place. The fundamental difference lies in quantity. A place contains 3 natures, each of which exist independently and in relation to each other. So the idea that you're kind of giving the actual location a place. Guides. Sometimes when we're on a journey, we want to travel together with no clue about what's next. Sometimes, however, we want a guide. A guide is who a player... Okay, so a guide is if somebody wants to GM. You don't need to have a GM, but if you want to have a GM, it's called the guide. A guide is a player who has agreed not to build a playbook, aka not to make a PC. Instead, they handle all of the places, the kith, and the seasonal changes. This doesn't give them any special authority or power over the rules. It just means that they can do all the things places and kith can do, and they manage those voices and reflections of those pieces through the game. Playing with a guide allows us to introduce new or less confident players to Wanderhome, build a world for the journey to take place in. This will often make the game feel more cohesive, and find harmony between everyone's different playstyles, aka there is a value to sometimes having a GM. Playing without a guide, playing without a GM, allows us to introduce excited and energetic players to Wanderhome. When we distribute the role held by a guy between all of us, we can all become much more active in our world building. Good night, Kendall. I'm not really, when I'm reading my PDFs, I'm not as usually as focused on the chat, so I apologize. If you really want to grab me, throw a super chat or tip in, because otherwise I'll probably miss it because I'm reading my PDF. I can't read the chat as much. Empower players to feel comfortable making bold choices. It is often easier to develop our ideas about things without feeling like the referee is watching us. Take breaks, etc., etc. Okay. So here we go. Again, just a quick start. We get together. We get our tools. We go into the playbooks. We talk about how tokens work. We pick our playbooks. We create our first place. We can decide what month it is if we'd like. We describe a couple of NPCs who inhabit this place or are traveling with us. And then we answer the 4 questions. All right. Not all journeys go on for a while. Some wrap up quickly in the span of a few hours. Many journeys will want to last much longer and involve many places and many people. So basically, you could play it as a one-shot, or you could play it as a campaign. When you come back together again after a break, talk through where you've been so far and how you want to approach the road ahead. Decide as a group whether you're traveling somewhere new or staying in the places you've been before. Basically, you could play as a campaign or not. Before you create anything new, decide on whether you want to advance the season based on the great arc of the year. All right. As you venture across the Heth, you'll encounter even stranger and more elaborate places. On the next page are the natures of such places, and they will likely push against what you're familiar with in Wanderhome. Mix these natures among the familiar sparingly. So remember, we started off with, where we started in the game. It was like, very pastoral. It was, it's a beautiful garden with a rolling fields nearby and a tavern, right? Very, very cutesy. And then let's see what we get if we get a little bit more. Oh yeah, look at this. We've got metropolis. We've got mirrors, graveyards, caves, ruins, wastes, right? So it's getting a little bit more extreme. And this is about, you might start a character and you might leave, you might create a new character throughout the course of the game. That's fine. You can also play this game solo. I don't know how they would do this. Oh, okay. They talk about inviting randomness into your game, maybe using an oracle. Okay. The great arc of the year. The great arc of the year is vital if we want to do a longer journey through Wanderhome, aka a multi-session campaign. This cycle of months and years shapes the Heth, informs every place we arrive at, and the temperament of everyone we meet. It is a reflection of how our characters grow over time and eventually depart. Each season lasts 2 months and closes out with a holiday festival announcing the end of the season. During a holidays festival, you will choose a new advancement that pushes your character forward in exciting ways. While shorter journeys may not care about seasons, any journey that expects months to pass should keep track on some sort of calendar, aka level up. You can find a more detailed description of each month starting on page 192. We generally begin in the month of Tillsoil, in the year of the water lily. Whenever you complete a full rotation of the seasons, a new year begins. Give it that name, a year that feels fitting. And then they want us to turn our head to the left. Okay. I don't know why this is sideways, but it is. Right, Viking. You know what, Viking? It doesn't matter whether you're playing first edition AD&D, okay, or if you're playing Wanderhome, right? You need to keep track of time. Without proper time management, all campaigns are doomed to fail. All right. Whenever a month begins or ends is up to you. Work together, decide how you will observe the changing of the month. When a seasonal holiday arrives, make choices as a group about what traditions are celebrated in your place. And basically, it's an opportunity to sort of review. It sounds like it's an opportunity to review your game, make choices, new choices in your playbook, and show growth from your character. Then, for most of our playbooks, we'll someday have to choose to leave their playbook and their journey behind. This might be because a character has finally found somewhere to finally settle down, to set forth along their own path, or simply has grown and changed so much that they must grab hold of a new playbook. This doesn't mean they can't show up again, but they're no longer traveling with us. So sometimes your characters, leave. Like Boys to Men said, it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Here's some people hanging out. Little rabbit and possum and hedgehog people. All right, so here are our playbooks. 15 different playbooks. We're obviously not going to go through, all of them. But we have an idea of what kind of character can you have here. A caretaker, a dancer, an exile, a firelight, a fool, a guardian, a moth tender, a peddler, a veteran, a vagabond, a teacher, a shepherd, a ragamuffin, a poet, or a pilgrim. So let's take a look. Which one do I want to look at? This just sounded interesting to me. The shepherd tends to a herd of bumblebees. So we're going to go to that one. So here is our shepherd. Herds of chubby bumblebees can be found across the Heth, and tending to those flocks is simple and honest work. You are alive. Okay. That's interesting. That just, I don't know why that really is weird to me. Are other playbooks not alive? No, you are alive. You are alive. Okay. Maybe I'm missing something there. Is that like a statement that I don't know about? Anyways, you're alive. Your care is measureless, watchful, and gentle. So we choose a name, we choose a pronouns, we can choose an animal, a ram, a turtle, a sheepdog, a hawk, or a guiding animal, a peaceful animal. So basically anything that we want to be, but the idea being that we were one of these things, or we're peaceful, or we're guide. Choose two you still are these days, and two that you're just not anymore. So, for example, our character could be reliable and tough, but they're no longer fatherly, and they're no longer young. We got a super chat coming in from Cal. This game sounds like it was made by someone from the free market station to get all of the likes for new and innovative design. Big props for the free market. Yes, this is a social plug. It's definitely what is it? You're trying to get attaboys. That's it. You're trying to come up with attaboys. It's trying to get a lot of likes. All right. This is very much like a PBTA. Yeah, I like the idea of choosing two that you are, choosing two that you're not Viking. I think it starts to portray a picture of you. And by the way, it also creates a lot of, questions and that other players might have, or you might have, about who your character is. We choose 3 to 4 to describe our look of our character. This is classic PBTA style playbook stuff. You have a herd of bumblebees. Choose up to 5 bugs you can always pick out from the crowd. So we get to kind of identify 5 of our bugs that are maybe important to us or special to us. And remember, ones with the little flower are a little bit more supernatural, and ones with the crossed equal sign are a little bit more maybe traumatic or a little bit more problematic. So we have a herd of bumblebees. We get to describe our bumblebees. Choose one that stays by your side and one that you need to let go of. Tell the table about them. So one of these things we have to keep, and one of these things we need to let go of. And again, we have to tell the table about them. So maybe, choosing which one you need to let go of, again, suggests a lot about our character. And then, once everyone has done this, we ask one of these questions to the person on our left, and we ask one of these questions to the player on our right. Again, very similar to our backstory cards from this. So again, if you've never played a Ben Robbins game like Microscope or Follow or Kingdom, this might seem crazy. Like, how is this even a game? And to be fair, it is, in my opinion, pushing the boundaries of what a game is versus more of a guide for a certain type of activity. But, for some people, the fun of the role-playing game is not in the game. It's in the storytelling, and it's in the creation of these characters. It's in imagining, their who they are and who they could be. And there's a sort of a weird sense of, almost detachment that I think a lot of people benefit from. So understand that this is not the game, this is why role-playing games are a very tough genre to describe, because this is a role-playing game. It says it is, and it appears to be. But, so is 4th edition D&D. So is 1st edition D&D. These are all role-playing games, They just do different things in different ways. Well, exactly, Viking. I think absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind, that, and I'm gonna be honest with you, a game like this is going to be hard for, I think, most people to play. Most people, especially people who have existing TTRPG experience, D20, D&D, Pathfinder type experience, they may very well crack. They may break. Their brains might melt. You might see it dribbling out the bottom of their nasal cavity, because they just can't handle that. Is this why it tells me what a role-playing game at the beginning of each book is? This book apparently did not, by the way. So, all right. So, now, let's continue. What are some things you can always do? So this is basically telling us we don't have to spend tokens. This is what our character can always do. Now, it's very easy to be dismissive of this, but if you are a very strong narrative player, like, how do I put this gently? Okay, let's take a look what our shepherd can always do, right? Remember, we've established who they are, what they look like, what their bees look like. What do we have to get? What are we going to keep by our side? What are we going to get rid of? What about the people to the left of us and the right of us? And then we get to, what are some things that you can always do? Okay, one thing that we can always do is pat a bumble on its head. Another thing that we can always do is stare off into the distance. I'm going to stop before we get any further. Make an offhand observation that turns out to be correct. Rest your back against something for a moment and take some moment to breathe. Say they're friendly, don't fret. Ask, can I teach you something someone once told me? They get a token if they say yes and learn. And I'm going to be very blunt here. Let's just look at the first two. Pat a bumble on its head, stare off into the distance. Giving those mechanics, if you want to call them that, to Bob will result in almost nothing. If you gave those mechanics to Smith, you would get something very special, and you would get something very interesting. And he would take that little bit of thread, right, and start to weave something, right? And that's, I know it sounds silly, but that's like the magic of a game like this, is just sitting down with your friends to just go, we're just going to tell stories to each other is daunting. I think for anyone, for all of us, even, for me. But when you have these little, these little hints, these little tidbits, that suggest something, that is a very powerful tool. So anyways, so that is something that's what our character can do. And by the way, think about this, the narrative authority to say, they're friendly, don't fret. Right. Ryan, you're talking about the Wizard Scroll game. You're talking about Fall of Magic, right? And the Fall of Magic is very similar to this. And I have also played the Wizard Scroll game, but it is called the Fall of Magic. During each seasonal holiday, which basically means, during your sort of milestone level up, you choose one that you have not chosen yet. We can find a bumble we thought we had lost. We can grow attached to a new bumble and name it. We can get another new bumble. We can recapture the spark of something we used to be. We can get a token whenever we walk away from everyone else to spend time with our herd. Right? So it sounds strange, but these are mechanical effects in a narrative game. And then the last one we can do is, the last two that we can do, take an unused playbook, so one that either we aren't using or maybe no one's using, and add as much as you want from that playbook to yours. Okay. And lastly, it's time for your herd to return to more familiar fields and for you to head your separate way. Decide which bumble stays with the group, pick up a new playbook, and make a new character. So, like, one of the things that you can do when you level up is leave the campaign and make a new character. And I mean, I think that's cool. I mean, that's part of telling stories is the end, right? I know people hated this, but one of the things I really liked about Gloomhaven is I liked that in Gloomhaven, each character had a goal, the reason why they were adventuring. And when that got completed, you had to retire your character and make a new one. You didn't get to not do it. It didn't matter. And I know a lot of people really hated that, but I really liked that. It made the characters feel, I guess, I don't know. I like it when the character feels independent from me. I know a lot of people want their characters to feel like synonymous with them, but I like it when the character is out of my control. So I like this sort of thing. Anyways, so we've got some more playbooks here. We're not going to go through all of these. You wield the blade that must never be drawn again. Oh, Smith would choose this one in a heartbeat. Oh, badger. Hell yeah. Ooh, mouse. It's very tempting. I come from Mouseguard land. Billowing cloak, hidden armor, prosthetic limb, a pack of smokes. Viking says everybody's going to want the veteran. All right, first things before we start playing, let's roll dice to determine who gets to be the veteran. Like, look how cool this is, right? You have a sword sheathed at your hip. You can unsheath it whenever you want. You must never unsheath it. That's pretty cool. And like, look, I mean, this is going, blessed by a powerful God, forged from the heart of the world. This is quite extreme. Choose one. And by the way, you can see here with the veteran, there's a lot less of the supernatural fun stuff and much more of the hurt, painful, traumatic background stuff. Again, I love this. Some things you can always do. Repeat a calming phrase. Spend time practicing a craft you're not very good at. I love this third one. Drum against the pommel of your blade. Leap to your feet and unsheath your blade and immediately kill the person in front of you. Then remove your character from the game. You cannot play them any longer. How do you use the blade without unsheathing it? Viking, it's saying that you can use your sword whenever you want to, but you can't. You know, like you know, in other words, like, of course you can use it and unsheath it, but it is not to be unsheathed. I mean, this is a game where violence is obviously off the table. And so this character can do this. And you can do this, and when you do this, it's a big moment for you. So pretty heaty stuff. Look at this one. The last one for this character to retire. Throw away your sword and settle down somewhere where you can live a peaceful life. Pick up a new playbook and make a new character. You know, think about oh, we got some people renewing their subs. We got 5 months from Sheppy. Thank you, Sheppy. And we got 6 months from my good friend Larry Taylor. Strife level over 9,000. Unmasked us. No, you know what? Like this last one here, right? Throw down your sword and settle somewhere where you can live a peaceful life. I mean, this to me is like Tom Cruise's character, right? At the end of The Last Samurai, right? He goes to the battle, and after the battle is over, he goes to the Emperor. He presents Kasimoto's sword, and then, you know, it ends with the voiceover, but we see him returning to that humble, rural Japanese village where he had fallen in love with the lady and her son of the man whose father and / husband he had killed. That is him throwing away the sword, settling down somewhere where he can finally live a peaceful life, you know? So yeah, like that's a great ending for your character, right? Anyways, very cool. So we kind of know what playbooks can do. And again, obviously it is, you know, all playbooks. I mean, obviously this game is not PBTA, but it is definitely PBTA inspired. Playbooks are supposed to direct us. In theory, so are classes. Once upon a time, believe it or not, every character, you know, what couldn't be everything to everyone at all times and be everything and do everything. That's a new thing. You know, old school D&D, which was class-based, the idea was pick a lane. And you're choosing this character and you're choosing this class because you want to explore this idea. It's a relatively modern or role-playing trope where the idea is like you can just, you know, custom pick and take this and take a little bit of this, and my character is this, but not this. So playbooks, I think, distill that back to this idea of like, this is about you as a player being like, I want to see this kind of story at my game table. And this is true whether we're talking about Wanderhome or we're talking about Apocalypse World or we're talking about Dungeon World, maybe not so much Dungeon World, but Monster Hearts. You're picking a playbook because it suggests and it mechanically reinforces a type of story arc that interests you. And by existing, it directs the flow of the game. All right. So traits. Oh, look at this. Again, obviously it's very, you know, children's fairy tale storybook-esque, but I gotta say, I do like the art. I prefer the work of David Peterson from Mouse Guard, but let's just say that. Traits are short descriptions of the various other characters we might encounter in the Heth. Most of them describe personality traits, while some of them, marked with our little flower symbol, indicate magic or supernatural abilities. Others indicate trauma or pain. Traits are broken into 7 categories. You can use the first 6 as a table to roll randomly on, or you can pick whichever ones feel right. So remember, we use these to help describe the NPCs, right? The kith that we describe in the game. So we've got artistic, grounded, intellectual, personal, physical, social, and traumatized. Apparently we need a D12 for those. And each of these gets described on a page, or a paragraph at least. So let's take a look at our artistic traits. We've got crafty. A crafty kith, and remember, I believe we've established that kith means NPC. is very skilled at putting all the pieces together in an unconventional way. They are often tinkerers, mongers, and magicians. Choose 1 to 2 things that they can always do, right? And so this is it. It's just a quick way to build NPCs, basically. I mean, I could roll randomly here. You know, I want an artistic character, so I'm going to roll a d6. Okay, I got a 3. This is an imaginative character. They are artists, glaziers, dreamers. Their heads up in the cloud. And, you know, maybe I quickly describe it's like, oh, they forgot about something. What are things that they can always do? Forget about something really important. Describe an everyday object in a way no one's ever thought about it before, right? Like this daydreamer, this kid who's supposed to be working on the farm, but dreams of building the world's biggest catapult so that he can fling himself to the top of the nearby mountain that no one's ever been able to climb before. And he thought, oh, if I could just build a big enough catapult, we could just fling myself up there. It'll be totally great. So, again, not super, you know, crunchy, right? It's more of just, you know, picking 1 or 2 of these for a kith and helping them describe it. And remember, in a GM-less game, you could potentially have, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You could have anybody pick up one of these kiths, you know, at any point in time. So this is kind of like it's kind of like a cheat sheet, right, to someone who's picking up this NPC. How do you play this person? What can this person do? What is this person? How is this person going to influence the story? Look at this. Like, this is our supernatural one, right? Many-faced is a shapeshifter who can adopt other forms. They are trickster gods, sneaky thieves with magic, skilled mimics, amongst others, right? So this is a big example of adding this kind of supernatural bend to your game beyond just certain things. And here is the traumatized traits. If you want to make your game a little bit more angsty. Okay, so this character is not alive because they are dead. All right, natures. One of those pieces of art that probably looks better in the book. Natures, so if traits are the building blocks of NPCs or kiths, natures are the building blocks of places. And we saw earlier in the beginning of the game that we roll 3 of these natures for our starting location. They inform the aesthetic of a place, the symbols of a place, the world surrounding it, and how does it shape the people who engage with it. Comfortable, verdant, and liminal natures are common throughout the Heth, while sprawling, lonely, and desolate natures are more rare. You can use the following table to pick natures randomly or choose them from the list. So we saw these in the beginning of the game, that the place where we start should be, quote unquote, kind of nice, comfortable, verdant, liminal. These are the places that are a little bit more, a little bit more risque, such as sprawling, lonely, and desolate. And again, we get examples from each of these. This looks straight out of like Disney's Robin Hood, the animated one. I don't know why. That just reminds me of Disney. If this was like, aren't there alligator people in Disney's Robin Hood? So here, this is getting into the natures of a place. Remember, each of these looks like they're basically gets their own page. Yeah. So our location might have the farm nature. This place can always, remember, because we don't just describe our players. Again, let's assume for a moment that we're not playing with a GM, that we're playing without a guide. As a person, we could play as our character. That's part of our thing. Part of our agenda is to give voice to our characters. The second thing is to give voice to the kith. Those are the NPCs. And of course, if we have a GM or a guide, they will do that job. But the third task was to give voice to places. So this is basically a way of saying it's kind of everybody's way. Like the places are almost as much of an NPC as the NPCs are. And they have powers and things that they can say, So I think that's I think that's really interesting. So a farm can always, right? Remember, and the idea is that like we could take it unto ourselves, right? So the GM might do this, but a player might do this. A farm can always describe the calm mundanity of everyday life, reveal the thin margins that people live on. And they can always ask, hey, want to help out? Give them a token if they pitch in, whichever way they can. Then we can choose 2 aesthetic elements to the farm, and we can choose 1 folklore about this place. And again, so all of these are just prompts for storytelling, for collaboration, for, building together and all that other stuff, I find it interesting that this game sells itself as not having complicated rules. Well, I don't think they're complicated, Kevin. You can argue that this diceless exchange of narrative authority has its own complications. Absolutely, Kevin. That is why this book exists, and it doesn't just say, go sit around a table with your friends and just tell stories. I'm a bit confused. If you didn't pick the forget something important option for things your character can always do, does that mean your character can't forget things? I don't believe so. I just think it means that your character is always in a position to forget something. It's almost like, actually, here's maybe a great way of explaining it. You know how, this is not going to make any sense to anybody who's not part of our Discord and part of our infinite conversations. You know how there's this idea that like, for you guys, not for me, because this is difficult for me, that like, who your character is and you know what they would do, right? So like you have this established idea of what your character is, right? And you're going to play truth to that. But when a character can always do something, it means that it's almost giving you, the player, permission to sort of decide that even though that character probably would remember that, you are deciding, because it'll make a better narrative, that they did forget something important, because it's going to make for a better story moment. Even if it doesn't seem like something that if you were like deep role playing into the character that they would ever forget. And so like your natural instinct as like in an actor stance might be to like, no, I remember that. But because you have this quote unquote power to always do this thing and forget about something important, it sort of gives you table permission to go a little bit beyond or above what would otherwise be expected of your character. Does that make any sense? I mean, obviously someone can forget something and that's okay. But this is sort of saying like, this is not just something that your character can do. It's almost like it's something that you should do. If that makes any sense. Again, I'm never played it before. I'm hardly the expert of this. Yeah, I think it's more of a personality guide more than a hard limitation. Also, what page are we on here? 141. Just so I can go back to it real quick. Remember that we can spend a token. I'm sorry. We can take a token whenever we inconvenience ourselves to help someone, whenever we give away something we hold dear, whenever we pause for a moment and get some rest, whenever we leave an offering, whenever we speak our true feelings. And we can spend tokens to do things like, offer someone the chance to connect with you on a personal level, keep someone safe from the difficulties of the world. They're not saying that like, if you're run out of meta currency, you can't be nice to somebody. Okay. So, ease someone's pain, if only for a moment. So you're saying I need a token to do that? No. But what I am saying is that part of making this a fun game is the idea that, and I know this is where people, it frustrates me. Part of the fun of role-playing games, in my opinion, are these limitations. And while I wouldn't call them hard limitations, okay, I do think that they exist to create a flow in the conversation. This is one of the reasons why I am so kind of against just the pointless characters talking around in character. I think this, where you have this idea of the interchange of these tokens, that in order to give something, you have to get something, or in order to get something, you have to give something. is interesting. And that if a character doesn't have any tokens in front of them, it's because they haven't been doing this stuff enough. And if they're not doing this stuff enough, they haven't earned the right to contribute as much to the narrative as the rest of us. Right? And that's this gives you that sort of narrative authority. It gives you that sort of narrative power. This is making a game out of the collaborative storytelling experience. And in some ways, this is like the opposite of what again, there's a personality type that I don't quite understand. There's a lot of people in our Discord who are like this, where they want this like heavily gamey game, but then they want to be able to like role play, FPT, make a character's personality, thoughts, wants, innermost desire, and have it be completely unfettered by anything mechanical whatsoever. And they want their game to be the game, and they want the role playing and the story to be its own thing. This is not that. Obviously, the game element of terms of D20 and all this stuff is very, very low. But what it is doing is it's taking a lot of those personality elements and saying, and a lot of role playing elements and saying, you can make a game of that. What is a game? 200 pages later. Yes. So again, I think this is more about creating the ebb and flow of what a conversation and a collaborative storytelling experience should be. These things that are listed on screen here, these are things that the authors of this game want to encourage. And so they are rewarding you mechanically for doing that. Anyways. So we've got a bunch of different places here. And we've got our nice little comfortable places, our cozy places here. And then we have, I like this art too. Then we have places that are more out in nature, verdant, and they all seem to follow the same basic premise. What can this place always do? And they always end with an ask, can we look at the clouds together? Give them a token if they say yes. Now, what I'm not sure is that another player asking another player? Do you have to give them a token from your pool, or is that coming from a centralized pool? It probably doesn't really matter that much, but I'm just kind of curious if this is something that the place is asking and you're just getting it from the ether, or is this something that it's more of like it's encouraging and allowing another player to ask another player this question and give them a token if they say yes. By the way, if that is the case, I mean, anybody who has read Monster Hearts knows that this is basically how strings work in Monster Hearts. You have the ability to earn strings on other players, and then you can bribe that player. You can basically say, hey, if you do what I tell you to do, I will give you, I have this string. So if I give you back your string and you do what I say to do, you will earn an experience point. So it's kind of a way of mechanically reinforcing what the game is already sort of excited about. And here we go. Again, we're getting into some more mystical stuff. The Hallow. A hollow is a sacred place where gods and mortals mingle. The Hallow. And then we've got all these different places. I love this art. I love orangey tones and fall tones in this kind of art style. I mean, again, this is classic fairy tale 101, right? We got the bridge. Look at two of the aesthetic elements. A mighty creature hiding underneath. And you notice that the mighty part is in italics, right? So it could just be it could be a bear, but if we want to make it more fantastical, right, it could be a troll. Pretty cool. And we've got, I just kind of mostly want to look at the art here. So this is our sprawling places. These are our carnivals, furnace, palace, university. Here is our lonely places. A cave, an ancient place, its origin forgotten. A mirage, a mirror. And remember, They say places can be literal or natures could be literal or they could be metaphorical, right? So that's something I think to keep in mind of as well. And then we have our desolate places, the labyrinth, the desert, the maelstrom, the mountain, the ruin, and the wastes. All right. It's based on a tarot card. It kind of looks very like stained glassy to me. I really like this piece of art. And I really liked the lonely one. I mean, that looks you're 100% right. This definitely looks like a tarot card. All right. So this is basically how to do our campaign, right? The Heth, that's the world that we're in, is shaped by the continuous passage of the year with each season blending into the next. These seasons are composed of months and punctuated by holidays. As we learn the rhythm of time, we will feel how it changes with us. During longer journeys, we'll use this section to follow the great arc of the year. Oh, goodness. So these are the seasons. There's leap, bright, breathe, silt, and chill. And then I'm guessing these are the months. Till soil, sun parade. Oh, okay. So each season has 2 months, till soil and monsoon. And then the festival that ends the season is called the sun parade. And then in the season of bright, we have Bloom Meadow and Devil Days. And it ends with the Day of Song. And we go through this. Now there's like 40 pages here. So I don't think we're going to get through all of this. Ah, okay. This is where we get, in my opinion, to the quiet year. Aha. Do I have my quiet year? I thought I had my quiet year cards. Okay. Whew. If you've ever bought the quiet year, this is the quiet year deck. You use this. It's a community map drawing game. Okay. But the key thing here is that the deck is divided into different seasons. Okay, and that is what sort of each season has sort of a theme. And as you go through the map drawing game, spring is very hopefully optimistic, but still a bit uncertain. Summer is when your big plans come to fruition. Fall is when you become more cautious and become more concerned about the future. And then the winter phase is very, 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 scary in its own way. And so there's this idea then that as you play through a game of the quiet year, that each season, as you go around the table and add stuff to that, is going to have a sort of feeling about it and sort of a tone and sort of an overarching question that it's going to ask. And like when you play, where's that? So like, and this is the rule manual for the quiet year. And like when you play it, when you sit down to play the quiet year, the first thing that you do is you sketch out the terrain and you start with starting resources. Next, we decide an important resource for the community, something that we have in either abundance or scarcity. Choosing a resource makes it important, and then we mark it as being part of abundance. And so basically, and then we pick a resource that we need, and it's in scarcity. So the idea is, right from the start, you're setting up sort of like, what does our community need? What does our community want? What does our community have? And so this is that, where in each month is going to have that sort of theme, and it's going to ask questions of your group, and it's going to ask you to build a narrative around that. So, till soil is the first month after winter, basically. So it's like early spring. And you have to choose one that this place lacks. The others are all present. So already we're going to get an idea of what do we have in abundance And what do we have in scarcity, right? Just like the quiet year. Choose 3 to 4 signs of the month found in this place, giving it that feel, getting it that narrative. So, between the time of the year and the nature of the place that you're in and the kith that are present there, the idea is that you and your group paint a picture for this unique place. And ideally, hopefully, you're writing it down or taking notes. And at the very least, you're experiencing it all together. And when you're done, you look back and you say, wow, look at this kind of interesting little fairy tale-esque journey that we created and all these fun things that came about that came about as a result of the unexpected push and pull when everybody at the table has basically narrative authority, because it just takes the story in wild and feral ways. Now, yes, I like to use dice. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think if you have a group of, to be fair, creatively minded people, they could surprise you. Like, I might have a question that I want to ask, but I don't have an answer for it, And that's what's interesting. I'm throwing the question out there. I'm letting someone else answer it. A lot of times in games, a lot of people, they want to ask the question and answer it because they have this preconceived notion of what it should be. It reminds me, in Fiasco, when you play Fiasco, if your turn, you can either set up the scenario, but then you don't get to decide how it ends for your character. The table does. Or you can decide, I want to be the one who decides what happens to my character, but then you don't get to set up what scenario you're in. The table gets to set up what your scenario is. So it's like it removes complete control from both sides of the equation. It's a really interesting idea. So Till Soil has this idea of where are we? What's going on? What does it look like? And then every time Till Soil rolls around, ask the table, do you know anyone here? Mark a sprout if everyone in the group says yes. And 3 sprouts, mark a sprout if anyone in the group says yes. And 3 sprouts if everyone in the group says yes. Once 5 sprouts are marked, that means there's a cold leap phenomenon this year. It's very interesting. We get a long winter. We get a bad harvest. The cold lasts, and everything becomes more difficult. So interesting. I'm trying to think about the game mechanics here. I guess it's just like a natural pacing mechanic so that not every till soil is exactly the same. But after a number of till soils, you'll have marked 5 sprouts, and then you get this kind of like bonus play area to have a different experience just to see how it works out differently. That's probably what it is. And then we have other places. So the monsoon is the 2nd month of the leap season. And again, we choose one that it lacks. Everything else is present. And every time it runs around, again, it's the idea of, do we seek shelter? Once 8 raindrops are marked, there's a great flood. So the idea is that way you kind of are getting you get like normal spring, and then you kind of get, oh, this spring's a little different because there was, a late frost and it made it for a bad harvesting year, or there was a lot of floods because of the heavy rains. And it just creates an additional level of complexity to your story. Now, obviously this wouldn't matter unless you're going around, the journey for many years and the passing of months is happening. Then remember, after we've gone through 2 months, we end with a festival day. And I believe that's the end of the season. And this is basically when we have a chance to change our playbooks, and we can choose some new abilities, or potentially we could decide that our character's journey has come to the end and they leave. So we choose 2 traditions that the place doesn't engage in, and the rest all happen. And during the Sun Parade, everyone can always get a token whenever you help out with the festivities, spend a token to find a pretty dress, a trinket, or a new friend. We can cool off in the shade. So, in some ways, this reminds me of the winter phase from Mouse Guard, where you basically play through the spring, the summer, and the fall. And the idea is that the Mouse Guard don't go out into the winter. They're little mice. It's pretty difficult to travel at winter. The nothing to eat, nothing to drink, but they kind of just stay home and rest and recover. And the winter phase is sort of the idea is like, hey, you should use a session and sit down and everybody, it's kind of a bookkeeping, kind of an administrative of session, but they call it the winter phase. So if you've played Northern Reaches and you want to know why Smith is always talking about the winter phase, it's because we're talking about Mouse Guard. And I feel like the festival at the end of the season is sort of a similar structural thing. If we celebrated the Sun Parade before, choose how this place spends this time. In other words, we've been around, through multiple years. Last time we were in, Barrowtown, and this year we're in Millbrook. And how is it different? And how is it similar? And, how are things different? Again, these are just prompts, If you've ever played with story cubes, which are just, the cubes that have the little symbols on them, it's basically that. Except not random. All right. And then we go into the next season, which is Bright. And again, I'm assuming that this continues to, reiterate. We're not going to go through all of the different seasons and all of the different months, but each month has its own feel, its own theme. And the idea that after a certain number of these things have occurred, you might get an alternative version of that month, say with the Great Meteor Shower or a flood. All right. And our last month, of course, is the winter. And we end up with the New Year's. Nice. So this is special. New Year's. At the end of New Year's, go around and ask one question to the player to your left and one question to the right, using those questions from your playbook from the very start of your journey. It's okay and expected for the answers to have changed. So it's kind of like a cool way to be like, let's really focus on how our relationships have changed, which is interesting, which is cool. And dedications and all the people who supported it on Kickstarter. Good for you. This is about Jay and about Ruby. We got an index and a final page. Now, the PDF does come with, so now we can understand these character sheets a little bit more. So remember, from our playbook, we are going to know what type of animal we are. We're going to know what we care about, right? Remember, that was written, we are alive, and we have these traits that we have. We can describe our personality and our look, again, from our character sheet. Things that we can always do. And then the safety tools that are available to us. And then we get our list of when we get a token and so we can spend a token to do something. We can get a token whenever we do something. And places to put in what kind of prompts and choices we have, like the questions that others have asked us and things that we have filled in. This probably feels like this is a little too small, I would imagine. Might be nice to have something that you can, a notebook or something that you can keep track of things on, along with what advancements we've taken through each season. But remember, we're also not just building characters, we're building places, we're building kith. So here is a sheet for all the different places that we're going to visit as we travel around this world and build it out. Places that what can it do? Maybe a place for a map or to take notes. It's almost like you want to start playing a mini game of the Quiet Year whenever you encounter a new place, just to kind of sketch out a map and do some stuff, which I think is really cool. Here's information about, again, the NPCs that we're meeting. And remember, if we're playing without a GM, a guide, anybody can play a kith at any time, and they might be a member of the party. Maybe they're unique to a certain location. It could be the mayor of a small mouse town, or it could be an ancient mountain god spirit who is angered and become awoken, right? Depends on how supernatural your game is and depends on what style it is. But if you're not playing with a GM, guess what? I could be like, hey, Pumpkin, why don't you play the mountain god? And he's like, okay, cool. And he, he looks at his little kith sheet. What can this kith always do? What can what kind of traits do they have? And he can just bring forth this idea. And then lastly, we have notes about each season, which is sort of almost like a campaign log of how things have gone throughout the course of your campaign. And a sheet to track all those different phenomena that we were talking about. So when the next, monsoon or great flood or meteor shower is going. And that's it. That's the end of the sheets. And as far as I can tell, that's the end of Wanderhome. Well, so now I know the answer. How is it 297 pages long or 273 pages long? That's how. So didn't that feel like that flew by? I mean, obviously I didn't go through every playbook and obviously I didn't go through every season. But yeah, okay. Okay. So again, and you know me, I love Bob. I love picking on Bob. But the truth of the matter is, it's not just even Bob. I have players that I play, RPGs with every Friday. I would not want to play this game with them. I don't think that, it would help us. I don't think it would be a good experience for them. They're not looking to tell stories in this way, Josh wants us to, Viking wants to look at more playbooks. Okay. Yeah, Viking. Viking, which playbook do you want us to look at? We'll look at one more. Here are the playbooks. We've got Caretaker, Dancer, Exile, Firelight, Fool, Guardian, Moth Tender, etc., etc., etc. So Viking, why don't you pick one? We'll take another look at another one. Yeah, no, there's a lot of art, a lot of blank space, Josh. You're absolutely correct here. The answer to a GM-less game is to have all the players be directors. Yeah. And to be fair, we played a GM-less game when we played Starforged, and it was not my favorite experience. I'll be honest with you. I do like having a GM. Whether I'm the GM or someone else is the GM. I will admit to that. I like the asymmetry that comes with that. Booth says, add this to the games I don't need in my life. Well, listen, sometimes it's important to know what you like, and it's important to know what you don't like, and it's important to know what you have things. And Viking says the teacher. Okay, so that's page 96. Let's hop over to page 96. Okay. Across the Heth, there are students who need teaching. You travel from town to town and help them learn the little pieces they might not yet know. You are alive, and your care is wise, distant, and gentle. Choose a name, choose the pronouns, choose an animal, an owl, a hare, a chameleon, an orangutan, a wise animal, an attentive animal. Choose 2 that you are and 2 that you cannot be anymore. Spry, conventional, extroverted, creative, renowned, talkative, pretentious, a man, and a woman. I cannot be conventional or creative anymore. Choose 3 to 4 to describe your look. We've got satchel of books, a cane, a dress, dangling earrings. Wherever you go, there are children who need education. Choose 3 subjects that you teach and 1 you wish you could teach. Paintings, writing sagas, emotional lyrics, astrology, herbology, radical and rebellious politics, secretly taught. Choose 1 thing that you carry with you and 1 you're terrified of misplacing. Tell the table about them. A bunch of drawings from the students you've taught, an expensive pen gifted by an ambitious former student, a diploma from the university that you left, a promise made to a demon with a catfish head that you try not to think about. Ask 1 to the left and 1 to the right. What did I teach you when you were younger? What do you know that I can't hope to understand? What can you always do? Here are some things that you can always do. Sit down, surrounded by others. Fumble for your supplies. Clear your throat to get everyone's attention. Tell the table about something related to your subject. Ask, can you show me this? Ask, what can we learn from this? They get a token if they reflect on what's around them. And then during each of the seasonal holidays, we can choose a new token. So again, we can learn a new teaching subject. We can invent a new teaching subject. We can become something we previously said we were not. We can get a token whenever we listen and whenever we want to talk. We can spend a token to step back and have our students handle something. You can always remember someone's name. And lastly, a community has invited you to stay with them permanently, and you've accepted. Pick up a new playbook and make a new character. Very cool. There's elements as I read through this, like there's kind of an element here. Again, doesn't surprise me here. We got Ford coming in for $20. We're closing in on the super chat goal. Ford, what do you got to say here? Ford, thank you so much. Derek, I am surprised at you. Okay. I was expecting you not to like this game at all, but you seem generally positive on it. Yeah, I do. And I think part of it is I can definitely see the influence of Avery Alder here. And there's a lot about this. It's one of the I've said this before on other streams, Ford, where one of the reasons I love Monster Hearts so much is because of the growing up moves. And the idea is that your character is a teenager. They're a monster, they're a werewolf, they're a vampire, they're a ghost or whatever. But they're a teenager in high school. And, they're shitty and they're horrible and they're full of strife and angst. And but the idea is that through their trauma, they can grow. And so kind of independent of that, I really like Avatar. And I don't know that Avatar was an influence on this game, but Avatar Legends has this idea of balance. And there's a class or playbook from the Washi Chung's library book, which is called The Elder. And normally every character in Avatar is a young kid who's trying to find their way. But the Elder is an experienced, bender who's along the way to help the kids, out. And a big part of their character's arc in their balance is learning to accept that sometimes their students, right, don't need them anymore. And part of them finding balance as the Elder, as their playbook in Avatar, is finding that sweet spot between letting them do their own thing, but always being there if they need you, but letting them make that decision, right? And when the Elder can kind of find that spot, that is when they have essentially beaten the game, right? So when I read this teacher and I look about these are advancements. So these are the idea that these are things that you don't start the game with. So like you can get a token. Remember that this means that the game is rewarding you whenever you listen when you wanted to talk. Okay. Think about someone like me, right? Who's any of my friends will tell you I talk too much. So you're a teacher, right? What are you doing? You're always you're always talking, you're explaining, you're not letting other people. This is showing that your character has learned to listen rather than just talk, right? Spend a token. We've gained the ability now, all right, that we can use our resources to step back and have our students handle something instead of us. That the implication here is that is not something that we started our journey with. And now we have gained this ability. We've grown up. The journey has changed us, And I think anybody worth their salt who is playing this game would choose this advancement only after it became abundantly clear that this is something that profoundly changed my character. And that is why I'm choosing this advancement to sort of reflect that growth. That is very fascinating to me. Those mechanics, whether it's Avatar, whether it's Monster Hearts, I love. And so I think that is the element, the undercurrent, the underpinning of this game that I like, which is it's not just a journey, a physical journey. It's also a journey of the person. It's a journey of the ego. It's a journey of your own development, True. I did not account for my love of Monster Hearts in thinking that you were going to like it. I mean, to be clear, this game is only barely, in my personal opinion, is only barely what I would call a game. It is, again, that's not a knock on it. Some of my favorite, like Fiasco, I guess is a game. Microscope calls itself a fractal role-playing game or something. Okay. I mean, it is more of a guided activity. I mean, there is definitely a little bit of the mechanics, of the narrative mechanics of being able to do something, not do something, to gain tokens when you sort of expose vulnerability and allow other things to happen. And then you can spend tokens to sort of assert narrative authority, which, that's a game mechanic. And specifically, that is a narrative game mechanic. But yeah, I mean, this... It's a pretty light structure. Here's my problem with this game. Okay? Here's my problem with this game. This is just me being honest. My problem with this game is I feel like this game only hits its stride if you're playing a longer game, right? Where you can see the development of your character and watch them go through their playbook and experience these different seasons and places and festivals and watch the NPCs come in and out of their journeys and watch the development. So this is potentially something that's going to take many sessions of play, and that's kind of cool. But I don't know that my interest in something that is so lightly defined could stay with it for that long a period of time. Like when I sit down to play The Quiet Year, I am happy to take 3, 4, 5 hours sitting around a piece of paper, drawing maps with friends, pulling cards out and, responding to the prompts. It's like, okay, it's the summer. A project finishes early. What led to its early completion? Or the weather is nice and people can feel the potential all around them and you get to start a new project for your community. And we can sit there and we can talk about our community and have these fun little stories and emergent things. And I love doing that. It's one of my favorite activities. I've pretty much played The Quiet Year almost at every con I've been at for the last, 15 years, 10 years or whatever. But would I want to play like a 10-session game of like one game of The Quiet Year? No. So it's for me, it leads itself to one and done. And I actually kind of have the same problem with a game like Monster Hearts. I think the beauty of Avatar, I think a lot of these PBTA games are really actually, some of the modern, Monster Hearts is old, but some of these PBTA games, I think really hit their stride. Like Dungeon World can be played, I think, as a one-shot, no problem, or like a 2-shot or a 3-shot. It's totally fine. You don't even really necessarily need the advancement, Hey, Ben.
Bennett tipped $10. You are correct. The intro talks about how this game is not intended to be played on the regular. You dip in, play for a bit, then come back later. It's meant to take
Interesting. Yeah, I think I kind of read a little bit about that. So, okay, so you play it, you put it away, and then you bring it back out. You play for a bit, you come back later. It's meant to take years. Interesting. That's very interesting. I would worry, Ben, that people would forget who these characters were, or they would lose sight of some of the things. And maybe that's part of the importance of taking copious and important notes and keeping something like that. I do think this is to me, this seems like this would be an incredible game for play by post, for sure, for all the people out there who like play by post. But that's interesting that they mention that, because yes, I could see. I'm not going over to Smith's house every Friday to play Wanderhome, like that is an interesting idea. Like, it's kind of cool. Like if you had a group that was into this sort of thing, it'd be interesting. Like when you have your Wanderhome game and when people, show up, when normally a couple people cancel. And so instead you go, oh, let's bust out Wanderhome. It's been a couple months, or it's been a couple weeks, or it's been, whatever. Maybe we haven't done it since last year. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And it's like almost like your backup game. We got $50 coming in from our boy Sean, who says, let's go EQ. And with $50, Aaron is going to be so happy because, Bob, thank you, Sean. Bob has never played an MMO. And obviously there's modern MMOs, right? You got your Final Fantasy 14s and, I guess it's actually pretty old at this point, but EverQuest 1 came out in 1999. It's still kicking though, baby. And I will be completely honest with you. I've played EQ1. I've played EQ2. I've played World of Warcraft. I've played Dark Age of Camelot. I've played I've played a fraction of what Smith has played, but I will admit, EverQuest 1 is my favorite. Yeah, well, that one's not happening. Are we having Bob? You know what? I missed Ultima Online. There was a game called Meridian 59, which I played like circa 96, 97, 98 or something like that. And I played that game instead of UO. And then by the time 1999 came around, I pretty much, as soon as I got my first ISP internet, I was playing EverQuest. Are we having Bob play Project 1999 or 99? I don't know if we're going to play Project 99 or if we're going to just use the Daybreak EverQuest servers. I think that'll be it. So, oh man, EQ1 is so rough, like revolutionary and stay, but oof, unless it's gotten a real overhaul, it's so aged. Oh, it's very aged. It's very aged. I mean, yeah. I mean, UO was very cool, very interesting. I think the reason why I didn't get into UO is because it had that like third person isometric view, like an Ultima game, whereas EverQuest was first person. And that was like the first game I really remember being first person. You need to experience EQ. I don't know if you can truly experience EQ in its full glory anymore. They really have sort of made the game easier to get into and to play, and things like mercenaries and some of this other stuff. But I want Bob, I want him killing giant rats. I want us to go to Black Burrow. I want him to fall out of Calithian and die in the Fade Arc, right? I want us to go to Crushbone and get killed by a train. Like that is what I'm hoping for. Abuelo says the map of Britannia adorns my wall. My online ID for like the earliest part of the internet in the 1990s, my online, like my username and all my online names was Noctur ZX actually, but it was named after the Isle of Noctur from Britannia, from Ultima Online, or from Ultima. In any case, oh yeah, running across zones, chef's kiss. So, thank you for that support, folks. I'm going to enjoy torturing Bob a little bit, because Bob tortures us a lot. So this is well organized thing. And the best part is, right, because Tuesdays I have him locked. I have him locked up on Tuesdays because he's, that's when he usually comes up to the studio and does a game show. But when we're the talk show, but with the studio being broken down over the next couple of weeks and us not having any immediate place, and we're gonna have to get all the cameras and who knows what we're gonna have to get set up. We're gonna have like a month where we would otherwise not have a Tuesday show. So this could be very nice. Okay. Thank you for that, everybody. We can definitely talk more about that. I just want to wrap up and say that about Wanderhome, and say that I would need to be Ben's point I think is really, really well taken, which is this idea of it being this sort of ongoing thing in the background. I think that's really important because I don't think I could just play this over and over again. Now, again, is this like a game in the traditional sense? No, but why do I like this a lot more than I liked Ryutama? And the answer is because this game is being honest with you, and it's saying, you know what? This isn't about you, the storyteller's story, and not about giving you these abilities to force the story in the direction that you want us to go so that we can experience your story. Now, I get that some people really like that idea. I found that idea very personally affronting. I'm not saying that no one should play the game if that's what you like. I'm saying that for me personally, that is the entire antithesis of what I want out of an RPG experience. Whereas this game seems to be the DNA of this game is everybody gets a say. Even in a world where you have a guide, a pseudo GM, that their power is exceptionally limited. It's honest. It's just not an honesty that I like. Right. I mean, to be fair, it presents itself originally as a game that you can actually play, and then it kind of goes behind your back. So, but I mean, assuming that is what the people are signing up for. I mean, again, there were presuppositions that I didn't even remotely understand in Ryutama, which is the idea that the GM is running a series of one-shots for different groups of people while keeping the campaign going, so that they have to sign off on his or her session so that everyone can trust them that they actually did run these sessions, so that they can level up their Ryujin, so that they can continue to tell their story to a different group of people. It's a very, look, I'm not a weeb. I don't know anime. I don't even really know that much about Japanese culture, but that was something that was just like, it made my brain melt a little bit. So yeah. Well, listen, it's not that inaccurate. So yeah, idea we should do a TTRPG themed Discord family feud. Top 5 answers on the board. Good answer. Good answer. Good answer. So yeah, very, very interesting. I actually didn't hate it. A lot of, again, this is people just, they want to put you in a box. This is like the internet in a nutshell, but it's TTRPG internet in like 2 nutshells. Everybody just wants you to be in a box. You know, they're like, oh, Derek would hate this game because he hates leshies. And he hates cute stuff. And this game is about anthropomorphic animals. No, I love anthropomorphic animals. Mouse Guard's one of my favorite games. I love Root. I love Mouse Guard comics. I love Redwall. I like this. So it's like, well, I don't understand. You dislike leshies, so that must mean you hate all anthropomorphic, and you hate like fox people in an RPG. No, it's not as simple as that. And so I think that games like this are important because it highlights that we can like different aspects of different things. So yeah, I mean, I like the anthropomorphic nature of it. I mean, the journey mechanics here seem to be there. There doesn't really seem to be any mechanics for the journey itself, other than basically describing like, hey, how did the journey go? It really seems to be more focused on the places that you're going, which is a little bit different than Ryutama for sure. Yeah. Anyways, I was surprised. I mean, it was breezy. It was fast. It was kind of whimsical in its presentation. Is it for probably 90% of people? Probably not. But I think if you have a group of people who enjoy playing these kind of narrative forward games and love just sitting down and telling stories with each other, then this is great. It's so strange to me because there's so many people who want to do this basically, but they continue to insist that they have to play these trad RPGs with their D20s and their strength scores or whatever, and then get like irritated or upset when the dice don't, take them in the direction that they want to go. Now, to be clear, one of the reasons I like PBTA and Blades in the Dark is because the dice take me in a direction that I maybe didn't want to go, or in a direction I never thought to go, or it leads me in a new direction. I do enjoy that. I enjoy not being able to tell the story that I want to tell. I enjoy that restriction. I know that for a lot of people, role playing is basically the ideal role playing is no restrictions, right? I'm in complete control of my character. I can do whatever I want with my character. I'm in complete control of the situation. I want my GM to be in complete control of the story. I am the complete opposite of that. I like being able to, disclaim decision making, even about my own character. This game does not seem to have that as much. So that is why that is probably not like something that I would be jumping out of my seat to go play. It seems cozy, says Pepper. Less beer and pretzels, more coffee and cookies. That's a great way to call it. Yes, less beers and pretzels, more tea and cookies. Absolutely, 100%. That is a great way to describe it. I know it's interesting. I mean, again, I don't know where I put it on my bookshelf, but it's kind of a weird format. Where did I put that? I think I'd be able to find it really quickly. All right. Yeah, see, it's kind of square shaped. Dragonbane for reference. So you can kind of see. So it's about as wide, I guess, as a normal. It's a little bit wider, but it's short, so it's more like a square. Cool. Well, that was Wanderhome. I guess we finished early. We never finish early. Wow, that was pretty crazy. Well, I'm cool to. Ooh, embossed metallic spine. Ooh. Ooh, ah. Beowulf says, I like not being in control of the world or situations I'm in, but I generally like to be in control of my character's decision. That said, I'm okay with dice telling me that so-and-so's argument is persuasive. And that's fair. BC3 released tomorrow? Oh, well, absolutely. In fact, I can grant you with a 100% confidence that BC3 will be releasing tomorrow. I do know that Roll for Combat has a new release tomorrow coming out, so you can check them out. I actually think they actually do. So I'm sure they'll have something to delight and surprise us as well. Well, if anybody has any comments or questions, I know I skipped a lot of chats here. I mean, we got to a couple of super chats and tips that people gave, but now that I'm not watching a PDF, if anybody has any thoughts or comments or questions, happy to field them for the next 10 or 15 minutes or so. Can we do a Discord poll for what EQ class we make Bob play? Absolutely, Jackal. Absolutely. I want him to have a fun time, right? I mean, somebody said, should we get an EQ community game going on? I mean, listen, I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm not opposed to the idea of if other people from the Discord, you can only have, I think, 6 people in a EQ one party, but if other people want to, hop on and make EQ characters and play with us and grind levels with us, I'm not going to say no to that. Throwing him in blind or guiding him. No, Land, I'm assuming that Smith and I are going to play with him and we'll just stream it online and stuff like that and have the chat. We'll see how it goes. Sean, any decisions? That's not what I meant to click. Sorry, Jekyll. Any decisions on the game you're going to be running for Exalted Plus? Well, actually, Sean, it's not the game. It's a series of games that I'm going to be running as community games. We had a couple that were very, very popular that really stood out. Let me see if I can find them really quick. Okay, I believe the ones that really, and again, it comes down to people's schedules, but there's a lot of people who wanted to play Blades in the Dark. There's a lot of people who wanted to play Scum and Villainy. There's a lot of people who wanted to play Avatar: The Last Airbender. There was a lot of people who wanted to play drop-in, drop-out games of Forbidden Lands. There was a good number of people who were interested in playing Legend of the Five Rings. Those were sort of the main games that really stuck out. So I would say Scum and Villainy, Blades in the Dark, Avatar, Forbidden Lands, and Legend of the Five Rings. Those were kind of the main ones. Potentially, I'm going to try to, I'm trying to get as many people to play as I can, basically, and try to figure out a way. Hopefully, like I said, maybe 1 to 2 sessions a month for each of those games. It all depends on kind of my schedule. Make him play a monk and then don't tell him about the weight restriction. Yes. Bard, see how fast the carpal tunnel. Now, see, the problem is Smith played a bard for a very long time, very high level. And so he was a master of twisting. We would just be sitting there grinding. Actually, it's pretty funny, but we would be sitting there just grinding, and Smith would be like, no, I got to twist. I got to get, mana song and haste and, all this stuff going. So Aaron would just be very, very critical of Bob because he would just be a clusterfuck. You're hoping I might up my Patreon for a month or two to get a few sessions with the Knights, but I couldn't maintain it for long. Well, that's, listen, that's fine, Beowulf. The only thing is, there's only so much time I have to run games. There's only so much time that Bob has to run games. We do this part-time only. Maybe there's a future world where I don't have a job and this is my job, but I don't see that time being anytime soon unless I start talking a lot about 5th edition D&D. And so while I love running games for people, and in Northern Reaches, I've run, big raids and stuff like that. It's just not practical for me to do it en masse for, hundreds of potential patrons. So that's why we have the ticket requirement, even though, it's not it's the best way to make it fair and give people an opportunity. So. That being said, Beowulf, I'm not opposed to the idea. If I have a lot of free time, more free time than I expected to, I'd love to be able to put up a slot that people who without a lot of tickets or whatever like that can just throw their hat in the ring and maybe win a spot in or something like that. Just bought the chanter for. No, I played a chanter for many years, and how dare you describe that you could just bought them. You'd rather see me play BG2? BG2. You mean BG3? Or just have me, or do you mean Baldur's Gate 2, like the old one from Black Isle? Because I've played that game. So yeah, I think it'll be. No, you mean BG2. Okay. I played Baldur's Gate 1 more than Baldur's Gate 2. Yeah, the Black Isle one. Yeah, and I played a lot of Icewind Dale. Loved Icewind Dale. But yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing that, and of course, I'm not looking forward to breaking down the studio this month. But it is what it is, and we're gonna have to take care of it. So thank you, everybody. We're gonna get some polls up here about EverQuest. We're gonna have some more games coming up for the patrons to play in. Hopefully, there might be there's an opportunity for some people to check those games out, just so that you can to see what we're up to. It'd probably be a Patreon thing. It probably wouldn't just be for the whole thing, but again, I want to expose as many people as I can to these games. And we talk a lot of these games, but it's really cool when you get to show them as well. So thanks real again to everybody. Thank you to Cal for the super chat. Thank you to Ford, Sean for the super chats. Thank you, Ben, for the tip, and thank you, Ben, for the suggestion. Ben is probably the in the top 2 or 3 people in my life who influences my RPG decisions these days. And that, I don't always love everything that Ben loves, but he's exposed me to a lot of interesting games and a lot of things that we've played on this channel, like Root. That came from Ben. So it's all good stuff. So this was a surprising win, and hopefully redeems me for the people who were really upset about the Ryu Tama stream. But we're going to be back Tuesday from the studio, hopefully. And so we'll see you then next time on Knights of Last Call. Good night, everybody. Have a good Easter.